Okay, I've got the high sign. Okay, so someone will be coming around to pick up all your entries into. I'm going to stop this presentation. Start another one. Let's see. It's I tell you, I wish my eyes were a little better. Let's see, looping. Oh, I'm looking for my presentation. I guess it's on the.
What's it called?
It's on the desktop. It's on the desktop.
Okay.
I don't see it there. Let's see.
Looping
No,
PowerPoint?
January. Yeah.
Don't worry.
I've got another pair of glasses. About 20-some years ago, I thought this old fellow I used to work with, why did he need another pair of glasses when he looked at the computer? Now I know why. I hope to give all of you a 10 or 15-minute break before presentation begins. Mike Allison right over here. I don't know if this is a precedent, but he gave me a ride to the meeting. I kind of like that. May have to have the other presenters do the same. You're going to give me a ride back home? Okay. All right. Let's see if I can get this to work here. It's in there. Ah, okay. Some of you may know how I was elected or why I was elected as chair-elect in late 2017, but I'm going to tell you why. So these two folks here are saying, well, I'd really rather not talk about it, but let's talk about it. I'm going to tell you the story, but the theme this year is global warming solutions. I know not everyone here is concerned, or maybe you might be the Tom Ream of 2 years ago, where I didn't have one care in the world about it. But I'll tell you the story about why this is our theme. In 2016, late 2016, someone on the AICHE Engage area of the session on climate change. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I wonder what that's about. And I started following it, and there were people who thought it was a big problem, and there were people who thought those people were crazy. And it was very entertaining to read both sides. But I began doing my own research, and I started to become concerned. In March of 2017, I put a post up. I know most chemical engineers, the vast majority are very smart people, and they were attacking each other on this discussion, not getting anywhere. So I prepared a post and I said, look, we're all smart. Why don't we get together and try to figure this out? We're not getting anywhere. And I suggested a task force. About an hour after I put that up, it was taken down, which didn't make me real happy. But I was given a call the next day by a young lady named Monica Mellinger. Some of you might know her. And she said, Tom, that discussion has prompted several people at the highest levels, the board of director levels, and around that vicinity, that maybe we ought to look into this. And we were thinking about doing this. And we are forming a task force. And would you like to join us? Okay, so that's how I got onto the Climate Change Task Force. But before I got that complete explanation, and I put together a strong age. I don't ask permission from anybody in San Antonio, and I had papers made up, and I had a place to indicate, do you believe global warming is happening? One question. And the second question is, if you believe global warming is happening, do you think it's due to human activity? So I started to talk to people. I didn't ask permission. I just started to talk to people, and I had a place for name, phone number, email, all this, but I said, that's optional. Every person put it down. After 33, I decided that's probably enough because a couple of people got irritated along the way, as you can imagine. They said, you know, this sort of thing can come back to bite you. Well, I decided to stop because they were there for another reason, not for that. And 32 out of 33 says, yes, it's happening. And about 70% says, yes, it's due to human activity in their opinion. Well, it was soon after that spring meeting that I got a call from someone named Mary Ellen Turnus, who some of you may know. She's a chemical engineer and lawyer. After working 3 years in the EPA, she went to law school, and she's been working in the courts for about 25 years on climate change. And we had a discussion, and she told me that that a task force was going to be put together and asked me if I would be on it. Now, on your smartphones, if you go to this URL now and get ready, I'm going to take another survey here. Now, I subscribe to this service, and I'm too cheap to get the subscription package, which will allow 100 people, because that costs $600 a year. So I only have 50 people. So the 50 fastest people in this room can actually reply to this poll once I put it up. It's not up yet, but you need to go to this URL. In August of 2017, we had our first discussion on ENGAGE, the Climate Change Task Force, and I was the guinea pig to put up the first post. I and another engineer were the moderators for the first two, and it was quite a time to try to figure out how we were going to do this, just to moderate the discussion. And I mentioned, well, I don't know if I mentioned this, but anyway, I was asked in late 2017 to run for 2018 chair-elect, and I told Shamal Podar, who was the past chair, and he asked me, I said, and he shares my concern, and I said, well, this is what I'm going to tell everybody. And so what I put out with my picture and my bio, all the stuff I did in my career, is that don't vote for me unless you want something done about global warming. And I thought for sure that Morgan Reed would be elected, not me. But I was. There it is. Don't vote for me unless you want something done. The last discussion by the Climate Change Task Force was in March of last year, and we set about then preparing a new climate change policy statement for the AICHE, which was passed approved by the board of directors in October, which basically said that we agree with the consensus of climate science. The board of directors also at the October annual meeting approved the formation of the Climate Solutions Community, which is going to be multidisciplinary. All engineering disciplines are going to be invited. All industrial scientific disciplines are going to be invited. We're intentionally leaving out climate scientists because they have a bad reputation for some reason. We want to stand shoulder to shoulder with the climate science community. Our objective is to critically evaluate all technical solutions. Every technology is out there that can help, and also work with anyone who has the billions of dollars who might want to put capital forward, and the U.S. Congress who needs to be persuaded. We're going to do that through the Public Affairs and Information Committee. So here's a little ditty that I put together about a year and a half ago. Global warming is not cool. It's not happening. It's happening, but it's not serious. It's serious, but it's not us. It's us, but we can't fix it. We must try to fix it. Okay, if you're all on that website or that URL, there you go. Let's see what you think. And I hope that this is going to work. If it's not working, did it come up with these questions? All right. I bet sometimes it doesn't work.
Is this real time, Tom?
Real time. The answer should show up. Hey, are you putting in answers? It's not up? Yeah. Yeah, dynamically.
Yeah, once you make a choice, it's just staying there. I'm not seeing a refresh.
No. What? Yes, I'm on the URL. Hold on. Now if I can read your... There is my account. All you with the good eyes, all these are my surveys. They should be working. Golly, Moses. But it's not showing up on my screen is what I'm, it should be showing up on my screen. I was in Nigeria 2 weeks in early November, and I use this a lot in teaching the course. You think you can help me?
I'm going to just try something and see if it does anything. I'm just going to try clicking right there. No, I didn't do it.
Oh,
Do you
well,
think you can just go to the website and show the responses there? Or?
it will. Yes, it will.
Do that, and I don't know why that.
Okay, that was a good idea. Go to the website. But where is the website? Look, if you can read this, global warming is not cool. It says no responses. So forget it. I wanted to know what you all thought. Refresh. Oh, refresh this page. Ah. Where on yours? Where's the refresh bar here? Where the hell is it? I can't even see where the cursor is. I need a young person here.
Or
Oh,
Control
F5.
R.
Hold on. It's circling.
It's working on it.
Do not mess with the circle of death.
F5 is the refresh? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll try to remember that.
Either that or Control R.
No, I don't.
It's still circling. Oh. The site can't be reached.
Oh, okay. Well, now we know why.
Sometimes it'll do that, but it'll come up after a minute.
Okay. Well, I think all of you are concerned. Is that right? Okay. All right. All right. I'll continue my presentation. Okay. I'm going to give a pitch for sponsorship. Both of these sponsors, by the way, are concerned. Start with the bronze sponsor. This is a company in upstate New York. They've come up with new technology relative to wastewater treatment. And so instead of spending mega bucks on your wastewater treatment, their new technology, they say, is going to produce electric power. I don't know how. Silver sponsor. This is the Citizens Climate Lobby has been around about 12 years. They are trying to convince the U.S. Congress that we need a carbon fee and dividend plan. Why? So that technologies which are more expensive can be viable. in the marketplace. Business Climate Leaders works with businesses who are concerned. And both of these are growing over 100,000 people in the Citizens Climate Lobby. That's who those people are. Sponsorship opportunities. So I don't know if there are any companies here who are interested, but basically this is something I decided to try this year, looping PowerPoint, various amounts of exposure, and you saw the self-promotion display table at dinner meetings. These folks will be able to speak next year. We're lined up this year. We don't need them to speak this year. A lot of complimentary dinner tickets, and there you go. So if you're interested, let me know. I'd like to thank the two workshop speakers tonight, and gosh, I even have an explanation what I wanted to say about them. And let's see. Could you stand when I mention your name? Charles Herzog, you here? Hey, Charles. Charles presented a workshop on achieving test run objectives with advanced preparation and real-time information. And Lisa Smith? She didn't stay? Okay. She presented a workshop on blockchain in the chemical industry. Charles, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule and preparing this presentation for us.
It was not busy, and it was a lot of fun.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. Now I want to thank several people in our section who do a lot of work. And there are going to be quite a few names here. And I'd like you all to stand up when I read your name off, okay? Carlos Salamanca is not in town. I think he's in Europe. Deborah McCall-Haney? I don't think I saw her here. I hope some of these people are here. Yurika Diaz-Villalobos? All right. Yurika, if you could remain standing, please. You're going to stand the longest. Sorry. Sanjay Sharma. Okay. Sheena Reeves. Aniket Patankar. I'm not sure I saw him. William Pittman. All right, great. Remain standing. Okay. Now I move those people to the top. Now we have the next tier. I tiered them a little bit. These are leaders. Matt Kolodny. Where's Matt? There you go. Dale Embry. Well, I want to give you, and then Carol Schmidt. Yeah. Talia Sanchez. Is Talia here? Ah, there you are. Tom Mann. Take your cane to hold you up. Okay. Oh, you got to stay. Okay. And then Carol again and her dad, David Spojan. David. Swarup Bade. Swarup. There you are. Okay, now they get so small. Let's see. I'm going to go through these pretty quick. John Middleton. Please stand. Jimmy Kumana. Trevor Rice. Joshua Borden. Phil Perpich. Morgan Reed. Fabian Solberg. Dennis Griffith. Ken Cox. Craig Campbell. Dave Solarski. Hugh Kaiser. Dave Alexander. Onesimus Haruna. Mayhel Coronado. Amar Aluwalia. Johnny Hoon. Adam Bialois. Shimon Potter. Dave Rosenthal. Thank you very much. We have a fantastic group of volunteers. I don't have much to do because they do everything. Now, I want to pitch that we have. And William Pittman is our position 4 officer, and it's under his watch that all of these are held, but he has volunteers under him. And I want to say, if you have a chance, so we have one to go to one or both, January 18th on the east side, Pipeline Grill, February 1st on the west side, Wyndham, Houston. And these will be promoted by eBlast also. The young professionals are going to have a planning meeting January 24th at 6:30 p.m. Olive Garden Italian Restaurant. Swarup sent me that information. And I guess you're going to lead that, Swarup? So please take a note of that if you are a young professional. Now, Tom Menn is going to come up and talk about... okay, yeah, that's good.
All right, talk a little bit louder.
No, we got a microphone. Stay there.
When they get a handrail, I'll go up there.
Are we going to take pictures? We took pictures.
We got pictures earlier.
Yes, okay.
Okay. Swarup did a wonderful job of running the organizing and
Not working.
getting
Put it right next to you.
okay.
There you go, perfect.
Okay, now, Swarup did a wonderful job of organizing the young professionals this year. He had a number of plant trips, some interesting ones like to a brewery. I should have went on that one myself. Swarup, come up here and receive your award. Tom, are you going to hand it to him? Thank you very much, Swarup. And we have one other to give tonight. There was I think you remember there was the SPTC, or the Southwest Process Technology Conference in Galveston in October, and they always have a Best Presentation Award. This year it was received, the recipient is J. Antonio Garcia, PhD, debottlenecking of a large industrial deethanizer by gravity-driven two-phase flow analysis. Antonio, please come up here and receive your award. Congratulations. All yours, Tom. Okay.
All right, so we can advance this a little bit here. Oh, Tom, you're not done. You gave me this one. You want me to talk about it? I can talk about it? So there are a lot of awards that we need nominations for, okay? So you need to think about who you should nominate. There they all are there. Best Applied Paper. Are these awards associated with the Southwest Process Technology Conference? Any? Okay. I should know more about these anyway. So any paper presented during the year. Okay. Best Applied Paper, Best Fundamental Paper, Best in Practice Paper. Outstanding Young Professional, must be under 35. Distinguished Service Award, Special Service Awards. So Tom manages those, but if you pass along any nominations to anyone on the executive committee, we'll make sure that that they're considered.
There's a form that comes with it. There's a form in the newsletter.
Form in the newsletter. Yes, that's right. Form in the newsletter.
On the website. I hope it works.
Okay. Yes.
What's the difference between applied paper and practice paper?
Tom?
Applied papers started getting very technical. And there were a lot of people submitting papers that weren't that technical, but were putting in papers like on safety or something like that. The papers that were submitted for being applied are very technical papers. Just about, it's hard to tell sometimes, and I've seen PhDs argue whether the paper was applied or was a fundamental paper. And I've seen them no, it's fundamental, no, it's, and the author said, no, that's an applied, this is my fundamental paper. I've seen that go on. And then there are people who write excellent papers on process safety. What do they fit in? They fit in applied. And
That's
energy
enough, Tom.
conservation.
We're running out of time. I just checked the clock.
Give me the next one. I've got one more to do.
Yeah, we're running out of time.
Okay. Get rid of that one.
Okay, so these are the people you need to contact, but you're not going to be able to jot that information down from here. It'll be in the newsletter.
Okay, we got the offshore technology conference.
Tom runs the volunteer effort at the Offshore Technology Conference. He needs people.
And the volunteer registration deadline is the 10th of April. It's the OTC the 6th to 9th of May in 2018 at NRG Park. You receive a free pass, free parking, and all the goodies, junk you can carry off. You can go to the entire OT, attend the technical sessions if you find them rewarding. You got to attend a mandatory orientation meeting and serve 4 hours in either arrangements, registration, student tours, or the First Timers Lounge and orientation. Contact me.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Yes, we do an e-blast on that, don't we, Tom? Yeah, we just do an e-blast. Okay, for several years now, several people have been conducting a PE review course led by Dale Embry and Carol Schmidt. It'll be offered this spring, and if you are interested, please contact Dale Embry or Carol Schmidt.
Sign up by the end of February. Because the first class is February.
End of January.
End of January, sorry.
For some reason, I'm real woozy. I don't know why. I'm going to introduce our speaker. Yeah, but I can't. Come on up here and mention it.
Okay.
You got to sit down a little bit.
Thanks, Tom. Here, I don't want to tip that over. Thank you. Okay, on Saturday, February 23rd, is going to be the Science and Engineering Fair of Houston. This is an annual event, and it's the regional finals for the science fair. And there's a couple of types of judges that are needed. One for certain technical fields. The science fair itself is looking for judges, and that's usually an all-day thing. This is on Saturday in downtown at the George R. Brown Convention Center. And if you want to be a science fair judge for the science fair itself, you have to sign up online in advance and get cleared for it. Now STS has its own judges. We have what's called a special awarding agency, and we give various awards for the chemical engineering field. And for this, basically we do our own vetting, and the key thing is you're an engineer with a degree and you're willing to help out, and you only need to show up for the afternoon. The schedule is, I think, from about noon to 1, or maybe 11:30 to 12:30. There's free lunch given by the science fair, and then they give you some brief advice on how to judge. And then from 1:15 to 4:15, there's judging, and we probably have to to spend about 15 minutes afterwards deciding on who gets the awards. And then usually we go out to dinner afterwards. The dinner afterwards, you have to buy your own, but it shows there's free lunch but no free dinner. Have I been speaking too long, Carol? So we need about 12 to 15 volunteers. The reason is we only have 3 hours to make awards in 3 different age categories. So we have to, and we overwork our judges if we don't have plenty of them to cover the entrance. And if you want to be a special awards judge with STS, I'm the person you need to get a hold of, and it's nice if I can hear a few days in advance so I don't have to go to bed Wednesday and Thursday nights wondering, do we have enough people? So if you're interested, please give me a call, and the people who've done it in the past generally say they've had a great time doing it. Thank you.
So I'm going to finish this from here, if you don't mind. I don't know why, just too much excitement for me, I guess. 2019 socials. Our normal ship channel cruise will be in June, I hope. We're going to have an XCOM meeting on this next Thursday, and we've had it year after year after year. I suspect we will again. And also the Astros game. The pool tournament in August is something I came up with simply because I misspent my youth in a pool hall, and that's what I enjoy doing. So I don't know if anybody else likes to do that. I'd like to have a holiday social in December, so those are socials coming up. Southwest Process Technology Conference is going to move to Houston this year. It will be on Thursday, Friday. There was enough interest in moving it back to Houston to increase the numbers attending. The venue hasn't been decided yet. Now, we need lots of volunteers. In the last week or two, I have been contacted by several, and I continue to be contacted, and I appreciate that. This is not a complete list of all of the efforts we do where we need volunteers. So if anyone here hasn't raised your hand yet, please contact me or anyone else on the executive committee. Now, another elephant in the room. I think I'm feeling better now. STS elections are supposed to be held in October of the prior year, so last October. They were not. I was not allowed to get involved. As the chair, I had to stay out of it. But they were not put together. We have no candidates now for chair-elect. We need two. We need one or two for position 3 communications. So, if anyone feels ambitious and wants to be a part of this great section, please let me or someone else on the executive committee know. I want this resolved soon. I want the elections to be complete by the next monthly meeting with the balloting by online balloting done prior and with paper balloting done at the next meeting, and then we're finished. So we need people. Mike Allison is going to be our dinner speaker. Don't get up yet, Mike, because we're going to give everybody a 10-minute break, okay? And when we come back, I'll introduce Mike. 10-minute break. Thank you. Okay. 10 minutes.
suffer from it from time to time, man, my heart will just go at something like 180 beats a minute, yeah. And the only thing that was sound is because I was gonna lay down and go to sleep, I did a deep sleep study. Once it goes to sleep, it's an incident to my back.
They already picked. Yeah, that's why. That's why. But I mean, he figured. No, ¿sabes? Esto, no problema. He's gonna do it.
The backlight's a problem. So you maybe you want to get a little higher.
Let's return to our seats so we can get into our evening presentation. So I was happy to see everyone vote in the, or not vote, but do the pop quiz. And so the first one pulled out had the wrong answer, so we threw that one away. The second one pulled out had the wrong answer, so we threw that one away. The third one had the right answer. So we're going to award a prize to Mr. Mayank Gupta. Very good. And thank you for knowing the right answer. I don't know what's in the bag. I hope it's good.
Thank you.
The answer, Los Angeles, 2.5 inches, Boston, 6 inches, Galveston, 12.5 inches. Okay. All right, now let's move on to our main event of the evening. Our speaker tonight, Mike Allison, holds a bachelor's and master's in geology. He has 34 years of experience in the upstream oil and gas industry. Mike is an active member of the American Association of Petroleum Geologists, the Houston Geological Society, and the Society of Petroleum Engineers. He has made a number of presentations on the use of drones to several organizations, including the Society of Independent Petroleum Earth Scientists, the Texas Association of Environmental Professionals, the Allied Geophysics Laboratory, and many others. Mike's talk will cover different types of drones and sensors to solve industrial problems more efficiently, safer, and at a lower cost than traditional methods. Everyone, please welcome Mike Allison. Now Mike will drone on and on and on.
Oh, thanks, Tom. So I'm not gonna stand up at the podium. Hopefully you're all okay. I'm gonna stand down here so I can see the screen a little bit. But anyways, thanks for that introduction, Tom. So a lot of things to cover, but a lot of these are just in single slides. I'm just going to spend probably just the first half just giving you kind of an overview or an introduction to drones, types of drones, those sort of things. And then I'll spend the second half, I've got one example of an aerial survey, just to give you a feel for what's involved there. But also, I understand you all are very interested in inspections, and so I've tried to tailor it a little bit more to what you all do. So I'm going to talk a little bit about drones for inspections. You probably know this, but there are a lot of drones now in the United States and worldwide. In the United States, as of this year, we'll have about 2 million drones in the U.S. alone, and that's consumer and commercial drones. On the commercial side, there's about 250,000 drones, and you can see that over time, over the next few years, it'll grow to about 450, 600,000. There's a lot of leeway there. But anyways, a lot of drones, there's a lot of growth in this industry and a lot of uses for drones. This other chart talks a little bit about just the different areas that use drones. Obviously, because these drones initially particularly had very good cameras, the real estate business took immediate advantage of drone photography and selling real estate, especially for the higher end homes. They're being used heavily in agriculture. It's amazing what farmers are doing now with these automated drones. They're really, really fantastic. And the government, obviously, insurance, I think all the major insurance companies, State Farm, Allstate, and so forth, they all use drones now for roof inspections, for, you know, whenever there's a big disaster, they call in their army of drone service providers, and they're filming roofs and all kinds of things. And the cool thing is now people don't have to climb up on roofs, which is a good thing. And although it probably maybe put some people out of business, I don't know. And then the other area is the industrial area. And that's your part of the business, and oil and gas and utility. So there's a lot of uses And this last slide just talks industries, construction, agriculture, and mining. In the camera. And batteries, LiPo batteries. And then you have a remote controller, an RC unit that talks to the drone, and then you have some sort of display, which is typically a tablet, an iOS, an iPad, or a kinds of drones. And the drone that's sitting over here. So these are all quadcopters, and you'll see there's different kinds of drones, but quadcopter is the most common. And the highlighted numbers are the weights of these drones. So you can see these drones, these are all DJI drones. DJI is the world's largest manufacturer of drones. They own, I've seen it anywhere from 70 to 80% of the drone market. They're a Chinese-based organization. They're kind of like the Apple of the drone world. But they make really, really good equipment, very reliable and very stable, and they're very responsive if an issue comes up. Because obviously an issue comes up with a drone, it possibly could fall out of the sky. So they get on that stuff pretty quickly. But one thing I wanted to note is the payload capacity. These drones are only designed to really carry cameras, and so they're carrying generally 20 or 21 megapixel cameras. They do 4 or 5K video, and this drone in the middle, which is my primary mapping drone. I love this drone for doing aerial mapping, but this drone is very popular in making movies. And so the movie industry is really making big use of drones in a big way. And but the cameras and the way that drone is designed, it's really designed for that particular industry. The Matrice 210, they call it an industrial drone. And this particular drone, which again is the one sitting here on the table, it's a quadcopter, but it has what's called a dual gimbal. So you can put like a thermal camera and in this case, it's a 30-time optical zoom camera. So that's what I've got actually configured here. You also can put a camera on top. So you can actually get under things and look up. And it has extremely good obstacle avoidance. These newer drones have obstacle avoidance. They're very smart. and it's water resistant, and so it's a much more robust drone. You also have, besides the drone itself, you also have a pretty good payload capacity. So you can carry like a small camera, and if you walk up to this drone, you'll see I've got hooks on each of the arms. And we actually carry payloads. We actually suspend payloads underneath the drone for doing like aeromag surveys and things like that, geophysical work. This is kind of the next drone up in the DJI series. It's called a Win 4. It's again it's a quadcopter. You notice the weight is twice the weight of this. So it's a much bigger, much robust drone. It can handle, on top of the drone itself, it can handle up to 22 pounds of payload. So that's a big sensor, or that's a lot of weight. And you might notice in this picture, it has a box underneath. So that box is actually designed to carry things. And actually, there's an app that allows you to release the bottom of the box, so it can actually drop payloads underneath. And this is kind of the vision that Amazon has with the idea of delivering things, you know. But we'll see if that ever really takes place. I don't know. Some other drones. You have fixed wing drones, which are typically used for bigger areas than the quadcopters. They typically fly a little bit longer, and they'll fly just a bigger area. You have helicopter-type drones, these small helicopters. You've got drones that have 6 and 8 motors. And the oil industry, well, I'm assuming you all would like these kinds of drones because these things can fly with 1 motor down or 2 motors down. These quadcopters, you get a motor down, and they're going to come down. And so, even though I've never had that happen, you don't really read much about that actually happening, but still, they have a lot more they have more redundancy in terms of motor redundancy. And then this is a drone which I'm going to talk about a little bit more later on. This is a drone that is completely encaged, and it's designed to go inside things. So it's not flying outside; it's actually doing inspections inside. And I've got a couple of short videos to show you. Hopefully that'll all work, and so we'll get to that in a few minutes. Yeah, it's completely encasing it. In fact, as you'll see from the video is the thing to really watch. It kind of rolls along the walls. You're manually controlling it with the camera. You know, you're actually, the way and you'll see, you're controlling it by sight, by line of sight. And then the joysticks control the drone, but it's actually kind of rolling along through things, and it's very cool. So, and it's a big deal. These drones these are hybrid drones, and it's a combination of a quadcopter type drone and a fixed wing. And so these are vertical takeoff and land. The Harrier jets, you might be familiar with, that do that, off carriers. So these do that. These are, again, much more robust drones, and they're very expensive, but they're designed to fly a long time as well. Oh, wow. Boy, I've got the spotlight. I didn't bring my suntan lotion. As I mentioned, most drones are powered by lithium-ion batteries, LiPo batteries, lithium polymer, I guess, technically. But there are other fuels that are being used as well. And so you've got hybrid gas-electric drones, and you might note that they can fly a long time. They can fly a much longer time than the traditional LiPo battery. The lithium-ion batteries, typically 30 minutes. There's kind of a 30-minute threshold on most of the drones, and these drones can fly quite a bit longer. There's also gas-powered drones, and I didn't highlight it here, but this drone can travel 500 kilometers. So I mean, you're really getting to be where you're flying a long, long time. And so, you know, you can imagine for doing pipeline inspection and some of these things that are very, very long or large areas, that's an ideal kind of drone for that kind of thing. There's also solar power, and this is actually a very big drone. This is about, I can't remember what the wingspan is, but it's huge. This was, I think, made by a Japanese manufacturer. This drone can stay afloat for months with the way it's designed. But this is just the beginning. I mean, there's a lot of work being done in all of these areas. In terms of sensors, I had to get used to the term sensor versus camera. I call everything cameras. But there's a lot more than just cameras being put on drones. And these happen to be cameras or sensors that I own. And so, let's see. So you got your traditional high definition cameras. They're 20, 21 megapixel, 4 or 5K video. This one you can interchange different lenses. So you can get, you know, you have some options besides a fixed lens. This is the 30 times optical zoom camera, which is on the drone here. This is a thermal camera. It's a radiometric thermal camera. The very, you know, high definition thermal camera. That's this little black camera that's sitting here on this drone. And then you get this this sensor on the end here is an actual multispectral drone. Multispectral sensor that does NDVI. It's heavily used in agriculture. And so it's kind of a specialized sensor. The XT, with the Zenmuse XT, which is this camera here, this thermal camera here, has actually been replaced by this camera. And it actually has a thermal lens or camera and an RGB camera built into the same unit. So when you're doing surveys, you can actually capture simultaneously normal RGB, which is your normal photography, visible light, and then your high definition thermal imagery. And it's very, very cool, the fact they've done that. If you're familiar with LiDAR, which is a type of high definition surveying equipment, they put LiDAR sensors now on these drones versus using traditional aircraft. There's a conference every June, which I'm going to mention at the very end. If you're interested in the application of drones in the energy industry, you know, broader than just oil and gas, utilities and so forth, there is a conference here in Houston every year, and it's gotten huge. And so these are there's a couple pictures taken from some of the exhibits. This is actually a methane sniffer. And so they're putting all kinds of contraptions on these drones. So that's that. This is a very sophisticated, this has all kinds of let's see, you got thermal, you got RGB, you've got you know, just all kinds of cameras being mounted to this drone. And this is the coolest looking drone. I mean, this thing looks like it's really coming from the future, but it's here now. Here with specifically, but one of the advantages I understand with wellheads is from a magnetometer point of view, they show up very, very obviously on these maps, on these displays. And so it's because, first off, they're metal, but also just because of their shape and their depth. Apparently, they really, that's associated with the wellhead shows. Do here in just a second. Software. I had no idea I was going to have to learn a lot. There's a lot of software that you end up using. These are a couple of mission planning where the mission you want to fly interactively on either on a desktop or on a tablet. And you design the survey, and then of course you upload the data to the drone and it flies itself, and it's pretty cool. These are apps more for inspection kind of work. These are just a lot of supporting utilities. You have SimActive is a Correlator 3D is the software I use for processing all the imagery. Essentially, you get into photogrammetry when you start getting into all this stuff, and you're doing things like aerial surveys. And so you got to take all these images and stitch them together and process them. GIS is a big tool you use in almost any of these things. So I use Blue Marble's Global Mapper, but Esri is probably the most common tool. And then there's a bunch of other things. I use a tool called Virtual Surveyor, and my example I want to show is a mining example. It's a proppant mining example, and so I'll talk about how I got involved in that project. So anyways, there's just a lot of software you end up using with all this. So the question is about fault tolerance, okay, in terms of what happens if the drone decides to do something bad. These drones are very smart, and so in this application right here, it's called DJI Go 4. You actually set up a whole bunch of parameters before you do anything, and things like maximum height you want to fly, maximum distance you want to fly. You tell it if the drone loses communication, what do? Return home or hover. If the battery gets critically low, you tell it return home or hover. And actually with batteries, if the battery gets critically low and it doesn't have a command, it goes home itself. I mean, it's a pretty smart system. And I've been flying now for 3 years, and I've flown all over the place. And I haven't had too much trouble with any of this stuff. It's every once in a while, though, it does do something unexpected. Because, for example, navigation-wise, it's using GPS satellites. It's using satellites to navigate. And we had one example in, if you've ever been to Enchanted Rock State Park, to satellites, and the drone, instead of the tree wasn't very high, and you fly the survey, they're captured in the imagery. Like RTK corrections, you can get your location down to inches, like 1 or 2 inches, and very, very accurate, the information. This is just and this is actually me on Enchanted Rock surveying in one of these targets. We laid, Enchanted Rock is about 750 acres. We laid about 17 of these things all over the park. And, but this is a typical kind of thing you do when you fly these surveys. Again, I mentioned that this is using traditional photogrammetry when you're doing surveys. Instead of flying these surveys with a plane or a helicopter, you're using a drone. You're flying much lower elevation. And so basically the way it works is you're taking a whole lot of pictures and they're overlapping. They have what's called side lap and front lap. And when you bring all this data in, along with the ground control points, the processing software processes them into what's called an orthophoto mosaic. It also processes models. So you can get very, very accurate elevation models out of this data, along with 3D models and a whole bunch of other things, point clouds if you're into that. So there's a lot of information you get out of these drone surveys. It does it, in fact, good lead in. So the question was, how does it know the elevation? So the system works. So elevation embedded in each drone image. In the sense of using satellites. If you use the GPS data from the drone without ground control points, it's still accurate because you're using GPS. You're using, these things will use 15, 16 satellites, but you're probably accurate maybe within 3 feet or 4 feet or something like that. Elevation-wise, the elevation is actually relative to the launch point. It's not absolute. But when you incorporate ground control points, because you're measuring these with very sophisticated surveying equipment, and it's absolute. So you've got an absolute lat long or XY and an absolute elevation. And so by using the ground control points in the processing step, you actually get elevation models and photomosaics that are georeferenced to absolute coordinates. And they're very, very accurate if you use RTK and those types of technologies. This is just a kind of a typical workflow. Pre-meeting, you do flight planning in a couple of these tools like Google Earth. So if I've got a project, the first thing I ask them for is a polygon. Just send me a polygon, usually in Google Earth, and then I can start the process. And so, once you've got your area that you want to map, and set up a flight plug it into a GIS system. Now you can do The other thing, of course, you can do is hard copies, you know, that kind of thing. This is just an example of the flight planning software. In this case, this is a tool called Drone Deploy. It's web-based, runs on a desktop web browser or on a tablet and an app. And so you sit there and you basically design the survey, you design a polygon, you tell it what direction you want to fly it in, how high you want to fly it, how fast you want the drone to fly. And you tell it the front lap and the side lap. It tells you what the resolution of the survey is, and then basically when you go out to the field, you connect to the drone, it uploads the data as waypoints, and then does some checks, internal checks, and you hit a button and it flies. And it flies the survey for you and comes back and lands on the launch pad. It's very slick. So for the question is, am I controlling the drone, or how, I guess, yeah, basically during one of these surveys? No, these are all fully automated. And so, but that's what I call a typical aerial survey. If you're doing a waypoint survey, you are. I mean, you predefine the waypoints, and then of course it does fly the way you've got it predefined. But one good is if you need to take over the drone instantly, you can, as soon as you move that joystick on the remote controller, you take control of the drone. So you do have that safeguard. If something happens, it's not doing what you expect, you can actually immediately take over the drone and get it home to the home point. Yes. Okay, the question. So most of these drones they're designed to fly up to about 40 miles an hour wind, but you don't generally do that. So I usually have a rule of thumb, don't fly when the wind's above 20, 25 miles an hour. But the amazing thing is with these gimbals, these computerized gimbals, they've got these cameras on. I've flown in 40 mile an hour wind and you would have no earthly idea looking at the photography or the video. It is, I mean, it keeps it rock solid, even though the drone's moving all over the place. The imagery that comes out of this stuff is amazing. I mean, given that kind of battering that it takes. Yeah, in turn, obstacles. Yeah, so the question is, it's called obstacle avoidance. So this drone has lasers on the top, all around the edge, and on the bottom. So if it sees an obstacle, and you have that option turned on in the software, it'll stop. Well, the data will stop. Okay, so if the drone stops, to be honest with you, I've never had that happen, but I would imagine the data stops because it can't go anywhere. You know, if it hits an obstacle or it senses an obstacle, it's just going to hover. And so, you generally design these surveys not to have any kind of obstacle in front of them. But the drone is smart, so it protects itself from obstacles. But it's a good question, because I might have to try that one day and just see if during a survey, I know it'll stop, but I think it'll just hover. That's just basically what it'll do. Yeah. On the processing side, there's two different types of processing. Everybody's into cloud these days, so you've got the cloud-based processing and desktop processing. And I've done both, and today I do desktop processing. I have a Dell workstation, dual monitors, and so I process all my surveys, and big ones, locally. And the computer handles this stuff pretty well now. And this is just, again, a long list of actionable data products come from drones. And so I'm not going to read through all that. I've already talked about a number of them. But you can get a lot of data out of these drones now. And it's mostly because of the sensors that are attached to these drones that you're getting all this data from. So I'm just going to have one aerial example, then I want to talk about inspection. So one of the contracts I have is with a mining company. It's actually a proppant mining company up in Arkansas. And so this is just a map, just a reference. Here's Little Rock in the lower left-hand corner. So it's about an hour and a half north of Little Rock. It's in a little area called Batesville, and there's a couple, Cave City, and a couple other little towns like that if you're familiar with Arkansas. This is one of the mining sites is a pit. So it's a typical pit. This is a sand mining or a proppant mining company. So this is a typical survey we do. We do it two different directions, perpendicular. We actually want to very accurately model that pit. And so that's why they're shot in two. Mm-hmm. So this middle display is the ground, the actual physical ground. But you can also much the same with this type of process. And then one of the other images you get or files you get from the processing, it stopped, I don't know why it stopped, is a 3D model. So, this is all capturing this data in 3D. And so I know when first time I generated this set of data for this client, they had no idea they were going to get a 3D model of all their stuff. And so they were pretty excited. They thought that was very cool. And here's the report they gave is pretty simple. and they get hard copies of all. This drone over here. What it actually is, so. Without putting the drone in harm's way. And so see how it zoomed in like that? That is probably what they're using, right? Is the Well, this is manually flown. This particular one is manually flown. You can design missions, you know, a repetitive inspection. So, anyways, we'll get, just for time's sake. I've talked a little bit about thermal. So thermal is a very, very important tool in terms of doing inspection. And so this just shows the kind of the breadth of things that people are using thermal for. And this is just a simple example of just your normal gray palette that you get with these thermal cameras, and then using a rainbow palette. So you can, within the camera, within the software itself that you use with the drone, you can set all these different palettes, and you can record temperature if you're using a radiometric thermal camera. And you can also map all this stuff, not just take individual pictures and video. You can actually map it in a mappable format. This is, look, I think this is a tank battery, and you're just seeing the hydrocarbon level just from the outside using the thermal camera. This is the drone I was talking about. This is called ELOS. And I've got a couple of videos. It's so cool to watch this thing. And so this is kind of the future of inspection. This is a drone that's completely encased. It's pretty small. And it has camera, you know, it has the normal stuff, but it's going inside facilities. So there's no GPS. So the operator's manually flying the drone using visual navigation. Yeah, in fact, I'll show you here. I don't know exactly, but there's a good picture of it here. Just a second. Let's see if I can get this to going. Here. Yeah, they're very small. See, and let's see if I can see if this will play. Okay.
Flyability introduces Helios, the world's first collision-tolerant drone. Access confined and complex spaces without any risk of crashing. Helios features a full HD camera and a thermal camera embedded on the drone. The robot's live video feed allows the operator to get the drone to the most inaccessible places up to 5 kilometers when in direct line of sight. Gather close-up images for high-resolution data with a sub-millimeter resolution. Onboard LED lighting system and a complete remote control of the camera settings allows to navigate and inspect even in pitch-dark environments. Changing the batteries only takes seconds.
So that gives you an idea. That gives you an idea of the size.
Insert another of the provided batteries, and you are back to flying again. Helios is safe to fly close and even in contact with humans. It avoids expensive, hazardous, and time-consuming access methods such as scaffolding, rope access, or sky climbers. It is incredibly easy to operate, and after only a few hours of training, you will be able to perform your first jobs. The payload head tilts over 180 degrees. Helios avoids human entry in confined spaces for visual inspection, highly reducing the risk for workers. It can be operated beyond line of sight, using the robust video feedback to navigate. Instead of focusing on avoiding obstacles, you can use obstacles to find your way and roll on the surfaces in addition to flying. Stored on an SD card onboard Helios, the data from the flight can be immediately reviewed and analyzed by your team and exported to include in your reports. At Flyability's offices in Switzerland, our team has been developing this patented device for the last 5 years, designing 7 prototype iterations, improved through extensive work on the field with industrial customers. Helios increases worker safety, reduces inspection costs, and helps reduce downtime. In the energy production industry, for the inspection of boilers, heat recovery steam generators, and other large structures. In the oil and gas and maritime industries, for the inspection of above-ground tanks, pressure vessels, as well as ship holds, ballasts, and voids. And in many other exploration of indoors, inaccessible, confined, or complex spaces. Inspect
Now
and
we're to my
explore
world.
places that could previously not be reached. Push UAV boundaries.
So that kind of gives you a flavor of this type of drone. Here's another little video.
Today we're inspecting East River 60 boiler using a UAV to go into a confined space, and so we're not going to need to enter the space. We don't need to use for scaffolding to look at our critical components. It'll save us time and save us money. Behind us is East River 60 boiler. East River 60 produces about 1.2 million pounds an hour of steam and generates close to about 150 megawatts of electricity. As part of the inspection, we look at the burners to make sure the burners are functioning properly. If we find a problem, we're able to react a lot quicker.
Without a drone, we would normally have to send a person in there. Before doing that, we'd have to erect several stories of scaffolding just so they could get up. That takes a lot of time and money, as well as adding the danger of working at heights.
The boiler behind me is about 120 feet tall, or about equivalent to about 10 stories. The benefit of having the UAV is that we'll no longer need to enter confined spaces. So we'll be able to work at heights without having to spend a lot of money, saving our customers and being able to return a boiler to service a lot quicker, producing steam and electricity for the company.
I'll do that in the next.
I have a question.
Yes.
For use in the refineries and chem plants, most things have to be intrinsically safe and non-sparking. Are these tested to be that? I wouldn't think
I don't know the answer to that. I have never flown one of these particular drones. Oh, sorry. It's about whether the drones are intrinsically safe, or this particular one, for example. And I think they would be, given the fact that they're using them like this. But I don't know the answer. Typically, these motors are not, I don't know that they're technically intrinsically safe.
I mean, a lot of times the operators would give us problems even bringing in a standard camera
Right.
into operating units. So I can't imagine.
Well, that's why I'm thinking that this particular one may be. I just don't know the answer to the question, though. So let me do one thing here, and then we'll finish up.
The display wouldn't be allowed in a plant.
Yeah, so that's what I think, yeah. Okay. Just a couple more slides. So I just pulled this off the internet. There's several reports that talk about the drone inspection cost savings. So here's a couple of headlines. I've got the links. If anybody's interested, I don't know how we do it, but if anybody's interested in the presentation, I'd be happy to supply it to them. But these just show oil and gas drone inspection saved $4 million in Egypt. North Sea offshore structural drone inspection saved oil and gas client 80%. So there is a cost savings, let alone a safety aspect to save, using the drones. Using drones to navigate major industrial accidents, accessing damage to ensure investigation team access to the incident site. So again, you're not only keeping people out of harm's way, a lot of times they can't get to some of these areas, and drones can. More accurate recording of incident site via aerial stills and video, and then easier and earlier assessment of the extent of damage for the purpose of recovery and business resumption. And then I'm not going to read all of this, but this is just kind of listing the advantages and disadvantages of drones for doing offshore plant inspections. And these are the typical things you might think of. Yeah, I'll be happy. You know, I've got them in Dropbox, so I can just send a link to Tom or whoever I need to. Just two more. I've provided, if you want the presentation, I've provided a bunch of just resources you can go to. And I mentioned this conference in June. This is an annual conference. This will be the 4th year. It's going to be held up at the Marriott, the Woodlands Waterway Marriott this year, and it's usually the same days of the month. But if you're interested in the application of drones in the energy sector, this is the conference to go to. These are just companies that are going to be involved in this conference, and the exhibits are incredible. If you want to see what drone technology is out there, this is the place to go, because people from all over the world come to this conference, and it's here right in our back door. It's called the Energy Drone Summit, but this year they've combined it with this energy, robotics, and AI. So there's some robotics and AI stuff that they're doing. So it's a typical conference, lots of technical papers and presentations, and then the very large exhibit hall. What's that? The question was the cost of the conference. I want to say it's relatively expensive. It's about $700, $800, and then they do have They have one-day passes, and they have that's for the whole conference, and then they have passes where you can go to the exhibit hall. It's at the Marriott in the Woodlands, the Waterway Marriott. I'm not familiar with that one, but anyways, that's where it is. Any other questions?
Hi, I've seen it on TV about movies with drones attacking enemy positions. What is the difference between this drone and those drones? Those are much bigger.
Well, you're talking about the military drones?
Right.
Oh, they're much bigger. They cost millions of dollars. They've got very sophisticated technology that we don't have access to. This is the whole different world. This is the world of consumer and commercial drones that we're allowed to have, that the military would care less about. But yeah, it's a whole different game, the military drones. Yes.
Hey, kind of on the other end of the spectrum, is there any real boundary or definition of what's a drone versus, say, the old radio-controlled airplanes?
Yeah, they do. The FAA has definitions, just like any government agency. They have very specific definitions of what a drone is, so there's different size drones. These are typically considered small UASs, so they're under 55 pounds. And I had a question from a previous presentation. What happens when they're over 55 pounds? I don't know, because I don't deal in that space, so I'm not sure how the government handles that. But yeah, these are small, typically pretty small drones. Any other questions or comments? Yeah.
In light of the recent events at Gatwick and Heathrow,
right.
Do you think drones are as invulnerable as they seem to be over there? Is there any way of...
Well, from what I know there, they still don't even know who actually perpetrated the problem. And so... the FAA has, obviously it's restrictive airspace and so forth. These drones, by the way, they use a network, I forget what it's called. It's essentially like a net around the airports, so I can't fly into the net. The drone will actually stop. And so, maybe in the U.S. it's a little bit more sophisticated, but don't get me wrong, people are trying to do things all the time. These things can handle payloads, pretty good sized payloads. So, whether we're more vulnerable than they are, I don't know the answer really to that. Can they be hacked? Oh, sure. I'm sure they could be. I haven't dealt with that problem, but I would imagine it's a computer system, it's got software, you're talking to the internet, you're talking wirelessly. So I would imagine they probably could be. What's that? Not been a problem. Not to my knowledge anyways.
Yeah, it looks like on this summit, you got expo visitors, it's like $99 a day.
Right. Yep, yes.
For the drones?
Oh, yeah, yeah, oh, yeah, there are. You know, some of the, I know GoPro and there's, Boeing makes drones, remember all the, there's several, and there's more and more manufacturers trying to get in the drone business. The big ones are GGI, Parrot, and there's a couple other ones that are pretty good size. But DJI still owns this market, at least in this commercial space. Any other questions? Yes.
To the question about intrinsically safe, a very large refiner and petrochemical company here in the Houston Ship Channel, at a recent conference I attended, commented no commercially available drones are intrinsically safe.
That's okay.
Nevertheless, they do use, they in fact have a fleet of drones which they do use to survey their plant to get all the inspection benefits. What they do is they make use, as you had described, of the high power camera, and then they fly the drone over the alleyways such that if the drone were to fall, it would fall in a presumably harmless way where it would not catch fire or cause a spark.
Okay, thank you very much for clarifying all that. Any other questions? Oh, okay, good.
We're done with
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. I think you broke the record for having the most questions asked of any speaker. And you answered all of them, I do believe. We want to express our gratitude to you by giving you a small gift. And once again, I'm...
We'll find out together.
Thank everyone for coming tonight. And I think we had a very excellent presentation with a lot of interest. Thank you. February 7th, the next meeting. At the Holiday Inn, JFK Boulevard and Beltway 8. February 7th.